A beautiful piece.
Welcome back to the final episode in the series. Here I'm showing off some boot and helmet upgrades. They both have evasion, so later if I want to take the evasion mastery for 15 spell suppression, that option is now open to me. It also improves my chaos resistance. I'm corrupting my first red map here. I use a Kirac mission to do a T12 map to keep moving up the chain. This map ended up being extremely dangerous. I totally forgot to take the 2 adjacent nodes next to Shaping the World for additional higher map tier chance. My first tier 14 gives me my first memory tear. There's a couple of Eldritch Orbs on my chest because I know I'm going to keep them, and I actually get really decent affixes. I do the memory tear because even though I can't witness them for Eater and Exarch, I can still drop higher tier maps, which I can use for that. I use another orb on my gloves, and it's fire exposure, which is quite lucky. After a lot of struggling with map drops, I finally get a tier 16 out of my tier 15 wasteland. I had to use a frost bomb for Vol because of the consecrated ground to stop his regeneration. Blue orb on my boots, and the good luck had to run out at some point, right? There's a lot of deliberation here on what map to run. I really had to burn through all of my Kirac missions. I didn't get a ton of upper tier map drops, so it actually took a while to get to my second invitation. Our second tier 16 map, and thus we were able to get our second invitation. Here I do some swaps on the tree for more boss damage. I take off the onslaught on kill because it's useless in a boss fight, and I use it to get some more damage. I come down and get Disciple of the Slaughter, which gives me damage per frenzy charge. I take the additional exposure mastery because I have exposure on hit on my gloves. And then I come up and grab the mastery at multi-shot to give me an additional 5% attack speed. Faster attacks replaces greater volley for additional single target. 3 elemental flasks come in to replace my other utility flasks. I change my mind and swap one for a life flask. I swap my Pantheon for life flask sustain. And we've come to the Eater of Worlds fight. This took 6 minutes and 40 seconds or something to that effect. 1 death to the tentacle attack. The damage is low, but we are going in kind of underprepared, so that's to be expected. But 1 death. I'm getting better at the activating the spheres phase of this fight, which in the past has been the biggest cause of death for me in the fight. And the 20% Calling Strike from Slayer does lots of work here. And the Searing Exarch fight, this one went less well, but I feel like I got trolled pretty hard. At least twice I got back-to-back ball phases, which I don't know if I've ever really experienced before. So this fight took 10 minutes. And here's an example of what I was talking about with a double ball phase. So like, I successfully complete this one. and he instantly goes into another one, which is kind of BS. I don't really understand. If somebody knows what's happening here, maybe they can explain it. So after all of that, I managed to finish the fight on what I believe was my very last portal. It was messy, but I got it done. 2 void stones down. Slash played was about 14 hours, 15 minutes. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the character's gear and maybe a little bit about the gear progression. We'll start with the body armor. I gambled the 5 link. I got pretty lucky with the Eldritch Implicits. As far as using 1 orb each, that's pretty good. What would I bench craft on this? Probably either increased armor and evasion or increased armor and evasion with flat life. That's probably it. The helmet, life, a little bit of resistances. Most importantly, it's got a big chunk of chaos resistance. That's why this helmet got put on in the first place. And again, probably something similar. Flat life plus armor and evasion. The amulet was really there because it had life, it had strength, and a resistance. I'd probably put flat damage, flat fire damage on this. If you're a madman, you could put increased damage while leeching, but on 1 Exalt craft really isn't worth it for an amulet of this quality. The belt, life resistances, and it has basically a passive points worth of strength on it. I would probably just put increased elemental damage with attack skills on here. Boots, life resistances, movement speed. Same thing. Probably just life plus armor evasion. The gloves are full, and they're decent, and they have a nice Eldritch Implicit on there. Also in 1 orb. I got pretty lucky. Life resistances, chaos resistance, crafted accuracy for precise technique. Life resistances. The shield was just, I kind of put this on early and never bothered to try to replace it. It had some resistances to cap me, a little bit of suppression, so I just bench crafted life and I never worried about it again. As far as where I got most of my gear, the rings were definitely from mercenaries. I have to imagine the amulet might have been as well. The belt was from a mercenary. I found these on the ground. And I think the boots and the helmet were both found on the ground, because I stopped doing mercenaries before I even got to red maps. Most of my gear upgrades do come from mercenaries. It's just been either mercenaries or gambling. I very rarely even find things off the ground in this state of the game. Let's go through relevant gem links. For most content, it's Explosive Concoction, Greater Volley, LA damage with attacks, Fire Pen, and Inspiration. On single target, you swap Greater Volley for faster attacks. There was an aura. I did a bunch of aura swaps let's cover that in a second. Shield charge linked to life tap and faster attacks. That felt really comfy while mapping. I used a Blood Rage. I use a manually casted Steel Skin. You would probably want to automate this if you were going to really play this character past what I was doing with it. Frostblink, Enduring Cry linked to Urgent Orders, and Sniper's Mark linked to Mark on Hit. And let's talk about some auras, because I did a bunch of aura swapping. For main mapping, I used Grace and Flesh and Stone. And then when I needed more damage, a lot of times I would just swap Grace for Anger. And then when I really feel I needed a lot of damage, I would swap Flesh and Stone for Herald of Ash, but I didn't do that very much. Enduring Cry was just for bosses. Shield charge around. You blow up things with Explosive Concoction. You cast your manual Steel Skin when you feel like you're going to have a bunch of incoming damage. And Frostblink's good for getting around ledges, and the Chill's really good for bosses as well. As far as flasks, I used a Life Flask, a Quicksilver Flask, a Jade Flask, and the other two flasks I kind of didn't really put a whole lot of thought into. I just used the Quartz Flask because I thought that would be comfy while mapping. And I had a Amethyst Flask drop early, and my Chaos Resistance was really low, and there wasn't a clear choice for another flask, so I just put this on. For bossing, I would use some combination of Elemental Flasks instead of like Amethyst, Quartz, and Jade. I would just take those off and then either use 3 Ellie Flasks or 2 Ellie Flasks and 2 Life Flasks combined with the Rizlatha Pantheon to maintain uptime on the flasks. Let's talk about the tree and how I kind of went about how going. I have a pretty good recollection of what I did. You come down, you grab the attack speed, bravery, Art of the Gladiator. You take Fury Bolts early because you're usually using a projectile. If you're leveling with Spectral Throw, that's a projectile. So this is good early damage. You come around, you get some accuracy when you need it. You grab Precise Technique, but you got to make sure that when you do this that your accuracy's higher than your life total. So you just balance by taking as many accuracy nodes as you need, and you also got to make sure that when you go down here to grab Thick Skin, that you also have more accuracy than you need, because if you put this on, you might just brick your Precise Technique. So for newer players, I guess it's probably just recommended you come and grab the entire wheel and Mastery before you grab Precise Technique. That way you won't ever have to worry about accidentally going over on your life total. But anyway, you save Burning Brutality. That comes later. So accuracy, Precise Technique, you grab your life, you come down here, you grab Point Blank. And by here, at this point, you're going to have a ton of damage. You come up, grab some projectiles, elemental damage, and then you start making your way up here. You get the life, you come up, and you're basically, for me, what I did was I just came up. Once I got elemental damage and herbalism, I knew I had enough life and enough damage, so I just came straight up and rushed Clever Thief with a Mastery for Leech. Then I grabbed Blood Drinker. Then I came over and got some LE damage and life, attributes as needed, and that kind of got me towards the end of the campaign. And then I came over and I made sure that I had Disciple of the Unyielding plus the Charge Mastery before I ever entered my first map, because that was going to be really comfy for mapping. After that, it was I think it was Mark the Prey plus a Mastery for Frenzy Time upcharge, or Frenzy Charge uptime, and then Suppression with Entrench and Innervate. I grabbed the extra accuracy as needed. Once I was in Explosive Concoction, I grabbed Burning Brutality and the Mastery for 100% increased damage. That was kind of it. I just filled out the build as I needed it, making sure that my accuracy was always higher than my life total, because that's right, I forgot to mention that there's a precision in the build too. And I would just level that up as needed. It was only at level 7. You got to make sure you can't over level it, because then you'll run out of mana, and then you've got to invest in some mana reservation, which is additional points on the tree. So now I thought I'd give my summary on the character and the run. The build was fun and it was fast. I would recommend it. The damage was pretty incredible during the campaign, and that's kind of the way that it was advertised. So it definitely didn't disappoint in that regard. I'm wondering if they're going to nerf this skill's damage. It sort of reminds me of Spectral Helix, but you don't even have to use a weapon. And GGG tends to dislike this sort of access to free damage, so we'll see what happens next patch. Haste felt great. I will definitely use that again while leveling. Even if it's just as an aura swap, I don't mind doing that. I didn't really engage with the mercenaries after yellow maps. They were just quite deadly, and this build was pretty squishy. I'm really happy that I ended up leveling that anger. It was very useful in the end game as an aura swap, so I would recommend that you do the same if you end up playing the build. In this league, the memory tears and red Kirak missions are really useful. They help you drop your tier 14, 15, and 16 maps to finish your run. Even though you can't use the Egan memory tears to witness either an Exarch, those maps still provide natural map drops that you can use. So the trick is to not roll them too difficult, especially in those higher tiers of maps like 14, 15, 16. If you start rolling them really difficult, you may not even be able to complete them. So it's important to kind of strike a balance there, but they're definitely handy. I mean, you're basically getting, you're guaranteed to get a memory tear in your first tier 14, so you're getting a guaranteed 14, 15, and 16 map to run and get maps from. Unfortunately, on this run, they didn't help me as far as dropping high tier maps. So I really just had to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get this run done. The gearing felt easy. Not having a weapon really helps. This was just one less thing to have to worry about. And I'm not really sure if it was a mistake to use the armor and evasion bases. It might have made more sense to use pure evasion. I think I just went with whatever I felt would make the coloring easy, because on these fast runs you're not going to have access to a ton of crafting currency, you know what I mean? So that's a wrap for this short series. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. I have a couple of options. I still want to do a couple more two-stone runs. Incinerate a venting. I'm going to do Incinerator Venting. I think I'm going to do a Flame Blast of Celerity Totem build. But another thing that I want to do on my main character in the league is I maybe want to try to play that Whispers of Infinity Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice build. But I will have to get the jewel, which isn't terribly hard to get, and I would have to craft some Chaos Inoculation gear. So I'm kind of undecided on what I'm going to do next. If there's something that if you'd like to see any of those in particular, drop me a note in the comments and let me know what you'd like to see next, and maybe that'll influence my decision. So thanks for taking the time to watch and follow along on this series, and stay tuned for the next thing.